Hello, BookTube. I have a little mail haul for you here. Not many packages, but I've been remiss in the mail. I've just been unexpectedly busy this week, and that interferes with the video planning mind frame, with the tightly oiled machine that is my video production schedule. But I have some packages here, and this mail haul ends in a box that is not a box. Intrigued? Don't forget to smash that like button. All will be made clear. But first, let's start with the packages that are not Hegelian mysteries. What is this first one here? Oh, okay. All right. We saw this. We saw the advanced copy of this. This is Amy Kaplan's Our American Israel. A crack right across the sky. An essential account of America's most controversial alliance that reveals how the United States came to see Israel as an extension of itself, and how that strong and divisive partnership plays out in our time. This book tells the story of how a Jewish state in the Middle East came to resonate profoundly with a broad range of Americans in the 20th century. Beginning with debates about Zionism after World War II, Israel's identity has been entangled with America's belief in its own exceptional nature. Now, in the 21st century, Amy Kaplan challenges the associations underlying this special alliance. Okay. An always volatile subject that I read pretty much everything I get. Everything that is available I will snarf up and read. So this comes out in late September. This is a September book. And Amy Kaplan is the Edward Kane Professor of English at the University of Pennsylvania. So this will be once again brutal reading, but necessary. I have lots of opinions, and I'm always interested in having them challenged or changed. They have changed many times over the years. Let's see here. Okay. All right. We saw this as well. This is also going to be a September book. Oh my God, my September shelf. Oh my God. And September is nothing compared to October. When I was moving the books and saw what October is like, I don't even know how to even start thinking about it. I'm not going to think about it. I'm just going to concentrate on September, because October is a nightmare. It's 2 whole bookcase shelves of books. But this is Sean Wilentz, the great historian Sean Wilentz. This is No Property in Man: Slavery and Anti-Slavery at the Nation's Founding. Americans revere the Constitution even as they argue fiercely over its original toleration of slavery. Some historians have charged that slaveholders actually enshrined human bondage in the nation's founding. The acclaimed political historian Sean Wilentz shares the dismay, but sees the Constitution and slavery differently. Although the pro-slavery side won important concessions, he asserts, anti-slavery impulses also influenced the framers' work. Far from covering up a crime against humanity, the Constitution restricted slave owners' legitimacy under the new national government. In time, that limitation would open the way for the creation of the anti-slavery politics that led to the Southern secession, the Civil War, and emancipation. And this is an author who's he's in that category of historians that is you have to read him no matter what, no matter whether you're interested in a particular subject that's fascinating him or not. And I have the advanced copy that's a September book, and I just haven't got to it. It's just terrible. So I shall. Let's see what this next one is here. Oh my! Oh, goodness gracious. Okay. This comes out in January. Wow. Okay, well, this comes out in January, and it is by Tracy Borman, and it's Henry VIII and the Men Who Made Him. I was just commenting the other day on this channel, the paucity of Tudor popular histories in 2018, maybe 2019, starting off with a Henry book is just going to contain many. Wouldn't that be something? Wouldn't it be something if it was a Tudor-heavy year? Wouldn't it be amazing if, for instance, there were a raft of new studies, a raft of new biographies, and also if the third Hilary Mantel Cromwell book came out? That would be, a Tudor year would be, I haven't lived a virtuous enough life to have merited a Tudor year. But Tracy Borman is a historian I've read before, sometimes happily and sometimes otherwise. So let's see here. Benefiting from her access to historical archives in her professional life as Joint Chief Curator of Historical Royal Palaces and Chief Executive of the Heritage Education Trust, Tracy Borman's previous work of history, Thomas Cromwell and the Private Lives of the Tudors, and her historical fiction, the novel was called The King's Witch, draw heavily on primary sources to fill out the details of everyday life which make historical England come alive on the page. And her latest work is no different. Henry VIII is best known in history for his tempestuous marriages and the fate of his 6 wives. However, as Tracy Borman points out in this new book, his reign and reputation were hugely influenced by the men who surrounded and interacted with him as companions and confidants, servants and ministers, and occasionally as rivals. So we saw a book just like this. We saw The Lion's Court, about Henry and 6 Thomases, several of whom are on this cover. At least 3 of the Thomases are on this cover. These relationships offer a fresh, often surprising perspective on the legendary king, revealing the contradictions in his beliefs, behavior, and character in a nuanced light. Okay. All right, great. I hope that's true. My experience is that popular history works or biographies of Henry VIII never contain nuance. Virtually never contain nuance, unfortunately. And if the histories and biographies are unnuanced, I don't even know what to call the fiction, where he's Grendel ripping apart the doors of Heorot Hall. I don't even know what to call him. He was an extremely successful and influential monarch for decades. And if you're frothing at the mouth, rolling on the carpet, insane, you don't get to do that. But anyway, let's see. Who are we going to talk about here? It wouldn't be something if it were the 6 Thomases, but it won't be. The nuanced light shows him capable of fierce but seldom abiding loyalty, of raising men up only to destroy them later. He loved to be attended by boisterous young men, the likes of his intimate friend Charles Brandon, who shared his passion for sport, but he could also be diverted by men of intellect, culture, and wit, as his long-standing interplay with Cardinal Wolsey and his reluctant abandonment of Thomas More attest. Huh. Okay, well, he couldn't... Okay, kind of wrong to say that he could be diverted by such men. He was such a man. But in the popular view of him, he's a boisterous idiot, and so you miss completely the fact that he was a studious creature of the Reformation, progenitor of the Reformation. Eager to escape the shadow of his father, Henry VII, he was also trusting and easily led by those male attendants and advisors early in his reign. In time, though, he matured into a profoundly suspicious and paranoid king whose ruthlessness would be ever more apparent. As Thomas Howard, Duke of Norfolk and uncle of Henry's 2 wives, discovered to his great discomfort, and as Eustace Chapuis, the ambassador of King Charles of Spain, often reported. Okay, all right. Okay, well, we'll see. We'll see. Okay. Okay, all right, fine. The standard narrative is carved in place here, right? The standard narrative is carved in stone. The 2 nieces of Thomas Howard that were being talked about here are Anne Boleyn and Catherine Howard. And the standard narrative here is that Anne Boleyn was sinned against but not sinning. That because she was accused at her trial of incest with her brother, she must have been innocent of everything she was accused of. And Catherine Howard was guilty, was manifestly guilty. No question of historical massaging of her reputation. Guilty of betraying the king's trust. And both of those people, Anne Boleyn and Catherine Howard, were aggressively pushed on the king by Thomas Howard in order to further the advances, the fortunes of his family. So it isn't exactly crazy old King Henry total caprice that would bring the king's wrath down on Thomas Howard. I know I'm bucking against the established narrative is already in place. There's no way to do anything about it. Henry VIII is just crazy. He's always been crazy. He was crazy as a baby, making little crazy baby faces at his mother. But there is a narrative to be constructed in which Henry was provoked into the steps that he took against Thomas Howard. Extravagantly provoked. So, and Eustace Chapuis, yes, he wrote damning portraits of Henry for his master, King Charles, the Emperor. And the thing that historians need to remember and almost never do is that he intended completely that those dispatches would be publicized. They weren't meant to be. They weren't in code. They weren't delivered hand to hand. They weren't meant to be completely private. They were meant to be disseminated. And so you take that for what it's worth. That makes it propaganda, but one way or another. Recounting the great Tudor's life and signal moments through the lens of his male relationships, Henry VIII reveals Henry's personality in all its multifaceted, contradictory glory, and sheds fresh light on his reign for anyone fascinated by the Tudor era. Okay. So that's January. So that starts off. We start off our year with Tudor history from whatever else I might think about her. She's a practiced hand at writing Tudor history, popular Tudor history. So, and then we do this this last one. What is that? I love doing that. All right. What? Oh goodness, it's him again. Okay, this is the finished copy of Mussolini and Hitler forging a fascist alliance. This is by Christian Goschel, who's a senior lecturer in modern European history at the University of Manchester. And this is just, as you can tell from the cover, this is the story of the troublesome alliance between Hitler and Mussolini. And I believe this is yet another September book. Yeah, it is. Okay, it's the end of September, but it's still September. Okay, so that is pretty bad. My September shelves are pretty bad. But that finishes with the books. And here is where I would ordinarily tell you that this mail haul ended in a box. And it did. It ended in a box. But the box was the wrong shape to be a book, even a mass market paperback. And it was as light as a feather. And it didn't have a publisher on it, so I assumed that it wasn't a book. And that therefore you wouldn't be interested in it. So I opened it. I opened the box. And the minute I opened the box, I realized what it was. So I didn't open the wrapping. So you are still going to get an unveiling. It's just not an unboxing. And it has to do with Project Penguin. Those of you who might be new to the channel, and like I mentioned the other day, there are 100 new people here, like in the last week. So quite a few of you might be seeing this not having any idea what I mean when I say Project Penguin. It's that thing behind me. It's that wall of Penguin Classics that's behind me. Which a year ago, I thought, wouldn't it be great if everybody, you have your cell phone with you anyway, and it has a camera. So you have a camera on you at all times. Wouldn't it be great if everybody went to their used bookstores, when they're at their used bookstore, and took pictures of whatever Penguin Classics were there and sent me the pictures? Not necessarily so that I could squee and demand that you send them to me, but it ended up being just generally fun to see what penguins are out there. That became just genuinely fun. And in the meantime, I've received quite a few penguins, as you know. I've opened the mail on camera. I've received quite a few penguins from quite a few of you, which is just about the best thing. That just puts a smile on my face no matter what. The BookTube could create an environment in which that happens. I love sending you all books, and I love getting Penguin Classics in the mail as I build this wall into maybe a whole room. Wouldn't that be something? And this is connected to that. This is, unless I'm mistaken, this is going to be the single greatest addition to the Penguin Classics wall that anyone could ever possibly make. Now, you just settle down. You just settle down. You're not having any of this. No, you are not. I am correct. This is the single greatest addition to the Penguin Classic wall imaginable. It's a penguin. It's an actual penguin for my penguin wall. Not for my schnauzer, who badly wants this now. She badly wants it, but she can't have it. No, I give her everything, but she can't have this. One of you sent this to me. This is a penguin for the Penguin Classic wall. I'm going to name him Wilson. and I greatly appreciate it. You know who you are. All right, so I've got an extremely homicidally interested schnauzer right now. Papers for schmoes if you have a penguin. So let's do a pile here, but I've got to be extra cautious because she wants nothing more than to kill this thing. So we have Hitler and Mussolini. No. You can't have it. I give you everything, Frida, but you can't have this. No Property in Man by the great Sean Wilentz. Our American Israel by Amy Kaplan. A much vexed subject. Can't wait to get to it. Henry VIII and the Men Who Made Him by Tracy Borman. And Wilson, the Penguin. So that doesn't quite make up for all the missed mail hauls, but it'll have to do for now. And we'll reconvene tomorrow, and we'll have plenty of talk about that. Thank you, BookTube.